All right, welcome to the Consume podcast. This is podcast number 4. I am Lance. My partner in crime today is Rick, as per the usual. That's right, I said the usual. I don't feel like that word gets enough credit. What do you think?
I think that word has just gotten more credit than it has ever deserved right now.
Like Totes McGoat and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I actually am a fan of Skinny Pam from Archer in the past season, where she tried to make the word apropes and inapropes popular.
That's horrible.
I actually went to work one day, and I basically put everybody on notice. All right, whenever we talk about something being inappropriate or appropriate, we say inappropriate and apropes.
No, what you need to do is you need to enter into a high stakes wager with somebody in HR and have the stakes be that if you win, they need to implement that company wide.
Oh, that would be awesome if only we actually had an HR department, which is probably why I'm still employed. So.
It sounds like the Wild West, man. I'd go for broke.
Hey, absolutely, man. That's a local journalist. You know how it is. But there's a lot going on, of course. There always is, especially internationally. ISIS. Now, not the super secret, hardcore, awesome international spy agency from Archer, the TV show, but ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. All right. Now, ISIS is an offshoot of Al Qaeda, if you're not familiar. And their most recent thing that they've done, other than stealing nearly $500 million from the Seoul Central Bank there, they put out a propaganda video, which was pretty disturbing. It was about 31 minutes long, I believe. And it just shows them executing former Iraqi soldiers who deserted, or basically anybody who might not agree with their hardline tactics. So let me ask you this, Rick. This group, basically, they want to set up their own little territory. All right, kind of like Kurdistan, like we were talking about before we went on the air. But that's not going to be enough for them. Like, basically, their goal is to take over the entire region by force and then put in strict Shia law. Their most recent thing, other than that propaganda video, is they actually have segregated the universities there. Females and males are no longer allowed to study together or share a classroom together. Females have now been directed to study during the day portion of the programs from like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then they leave, and then the male students come in from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. and study. Anybody caught violating that, guess what? The punishment is death. So, and it's either by stoning, decapitation, rape, and then being set on fire. They've actually brought back crucifixion, my personal favorite. So. It's a pretty crazy group, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think if anybody was in need of a popsicle and some sex, it would be these guys. Just being out in the middle of the desert and being sexually repressed with all that heat. Honestly, I think that human beings are not meant to live that way, and it will drive you crazy.
Oh, but don't worry, they're the good guys because they're offering the people that is under their thumb cheap gas and water. So
well,
it's okay.
Sign me up.
Right? Cheap gas and water? Hey, okay. But who knows how clean that water is or how good that gas is? It's probably stolen anyway. But the crazy thing is this, right? The leader, these ISIS militants, and they're about 6,000 plus strong right now, according to the UK. A Guardian newspaper suggested that, and that was prior to them seizing Mosul and Tikrit in northern Iraq there. But they numbered about 6,000 strong, including about 1,000 Chechens, and so. Some of these new conquests, they've actually attracted new recruits. And believe it or not, they're actually getting some new recruits from Europe as well as good old US of A. Now, over the years, like after 9/11 and whatnot, with Al-Qaeda, I think there were about 110 or so American jihadists that went over there to fight the good fight for them. And then there were even more Europeans that did this. Well, apparently this hardline group is attracting these types again. And what's interesting, and what these knuckleheads don't realize, is that they're not actually going to welcome you with open arms. They will train you to blow yourself up. That's what they use you for. I mean, that's just it. You're talking about the underwear bomber, the shoe bomber on the American side, Europeans going to subway system trying to blow crap up. And so it's just, these knuckleheads think, yeah, I'm going to be a part of a movement, man. And then it's like, you're 3 weeks into your training, and all you're really trained for is to wear a vest with bombs strapped to it. And, all right, take 30 paces that way. Yeah, I'm a trained militant. Woo!
Well, I mean, that's all funny, but, the real thing is that there are a lot of people dying, and these guys are very well funded. I mean, unusually well funded. Their recruitment materials are very slick and refined, and I think it's quite clear that this is almost a state-backed movement.
Oh yeah.
And the training and the equipment and the access to the explosives and everything else that they have. So this is just one of a long string of foreign policy nightmares that this administration is having to deal with.
And this actually sort of cropped up after the American military withdrawal in 2011. I mean, that's really when this really started, full steam ahead. And the really interesting thing about this, well, one of two things, actually. Their leader, who these militants are led by, his name is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Not his real name, though. He was actually born Awad Ibrahim al-Badri al-Samari. He was a rebel fighter in Iraq after the 2003 American invasion, and he actually spent 4 years, from 2005 to 2009, in U.S. captivity. Well, he was released, and he basically assumed bin Laden's top terrorist spot with a $10 million reward for his capture. But not even just that, okay? You would think that because they're an offshoot of Al-Qaeda, that, oh, wow, they're buddies. Nope. Even Al-Qaeda top leaders have basically classified ISIS as being too extreme and too violent for their taste and have shunned them. And then, of course, in response, ISIS has called Al-Qaeda traitors and a joke. Like, those are actual quotes, traitors and a joke. This group is calling Al-Qaeda a joke. I mean, that's just how extreme these people are. And so, they were born in Iraq. They captured a swath of its homeland over 300 miles long. It basically stretches from northern Syria down to outlying areas of Baghdad. They've seized Terbil, which is Iraq's main border crossing with Jordan, which is an issue. And they put hundreds of more miles spanning the Iraqi-Syrian border under its control. And basically their de facto nation, is what they're calling it, is continuing to expand. And their plan is to basically establish an Islamic caliphate state and erase colonial borders, meaning that they want to take over the entire Middle East, which is, well, when I say the entire Middle East, basically they want Syria, they want Jordan, and they want Iraq.
Well, Jordan is never going to happen, but I think
they're trying to snatch up as much borderland with Jordan as they can.
Well, Syria is already fucked. Northern Iraq is fucked. And, the real issue, this was created because the Iraqi prime minister saw no problem in ostracizing groups of people and really not playing fair with the different ethnic minorities in Iraq after the U.S. occupation had ended. So from that perspective, this is sort of their own creating, because they weren't willing to really have a real democracy where everybody's represented, and rather took the approach of what's good for my group is good for everybody. And this is a result of oppression. Oppression breeds terrorism.
Well, see, and the other thing is that many people mistakenly believe that, oh, they're just some small sleeper cell or whatnot, like Al-Qaeda, not how they operate. No, they actually operate more like a mafia or even a cartel. They steal various things, they resell them on the global black market. There's always going to be somebody who's willing to do business with them. Let's see here. They've tapped wealthy supporters such as Saudi Wahhabism in the Gulf and abroad. They also, this is very smart of them, they act as the public utility provider. They produce and sell electricity and oil, along with selling off antiquities from cities it captures. And so that's how they make a good portion of their money. They recently, like I said, robbed Mosul Bank, added over $425 million or so to their bank account there. And they've also begun merchandising their own T-shirts, hoodies, and baseball caps slapped with pro-ISIS slogans, and they're offered online by Indonesia-based websites and in Turkish brick-and-mortar shops. Basically, their war chest is estimated at about $2 billion. That's not too shabby for a terrorist organization that wants basically their own territory.
No, not at all. And this is starting to look like what modern organized crime looks like in the globalized world now that we're emerging into. And so I don't think this is I know this isn't the first. I know this isn't going to be the last, and this is just a horrific side effect of what happens when you try to play God with geopolitics.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is, One of the other major negative side effects from the U.S. withdrawal in 11 is that when the Iraqi army, basically the members there fled and just gave up really without a fight, they were ill-equipped to take care of their own country anyway, especially with the political shitstorm they were all dealing with. But ISIS came in and they seized billions of dollars worth of the sophisticated U.S.-made military equipment. I mean, we're talking things from Humvees and tanks to even a Black Hawk helicopter they have in their possession after the Iraqi army fled Mosul. And so, like, that, people are like, well, how the hell did they get all these arms? They took them. And not because, like, they had to take them with force. They just rolled in, and the Iraqi military who stayed got scared and fled because they had never actually been in a firefight, and, like, screw this. I don't think they realized that they'd be dealing with an organization far worse than Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, I mean, they came in hot. You know, they came in hard, they came in fast, they came in well prepared, and were absolutely willing to be ruthless, and that leaves us in an embarrassing position as a country. But I noticed that this administration really has a more pragmatic approach to foreign policy in a way that I don't really think we've seen that much, at least in the last 15 years. So I could see it being embarrassing to the nation, but at the same time, what are our real options?
Well, I mean, other than going in and actually just unilaterally bombing the entire region, civilians be damned, there really aren't any.
All that's going to do is drive recruitment numbers up for ISIS, though.
Exactly, and that's the thing. We tried that before under Bush too, and we see what happened.
Yeah, so it's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's an issue. I mean, just like the cartels are here for North America, coming from south of the border, as well as border towns along Texas, Arizona, New Mexico. And speaking of that, I know you and I are working on planning a trip to El Paso to basically embed ourselves with Border Patrol agents there, which is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and just seeing what the reality looks like on both sides of the border, and how it's impacting commerce, day-to-day lives, crime, and just a snapshot of how bad is the border issue really? What does it really look like? And I'm looking forward to it.
Well, yeah, because you've got some locals in those border towns say, "No, I haven't really noticed. Life is as the norm. Life as usual there." And then others like, "Oh my God, people are coming over with these diseases. They've got the AIDS. They're gonna kill us all." And
I don't even know if those are necessarily the people in the border towns. I think those are more people who live out in the country
or in suburban areas.
The people who are afraid of big cities, naturally, the kind of people who can't really tell you anything about the countries that they really hate or why. Right. I think a lot of it has to do with just honest xenophobia. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that people who sometimes aren't necessarily exposed to a lot of things tend to have a lot of fear for things that are outside of their county.
Yeah, you drop them off in Southeast D.C. and then we'll see how well they get integrated.
I don't think anybody's going to get well acclimated to being dropped off in Southeast D.C.
Well, I've driven through there a few times. I felt like I was okay, like the few times I was there. And you stop at a red light. All right, AC's broken. It's 110 degrees outside. Windows up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, doors locked, windows up, music off. Is that your MO? Is that your MO?
Not that that's going to actually help you. They'll just basically bust through the window, drag you out, cutting you up in the process, and yeah. And then they'll just chill in your car while at the red light while you look at them, and they dare you to do something about it.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, I'm just saying, that's being real, man.
You're making it sound like Syria.
Yeah, whatever. But the House, Congress is claiming that they're trying to get something done today before recess, but yet they refuse to say they're going to delay the recess. And this is Fox News actually trying to hammer certain portions of the GOP here and not getting anywhere, which is surprising. But good old Senator Ted Cruz, who's not a member of the House, mind you, basically sabotaged the immigration reform bill when he went to people that are favorable to him or owe him favors or whatever in the House over the last 48 hours or so. Although he did treat them to pizza, so maybe that's something there, and got them to vote no on this, so the bill died in the House. It's pretty crazy, right? When basically there's a rebellion inside the GOP.
Well, I mean, the GOP's had has had splinter problems for a long time. You know, starting with well, not even starting with the Tea Party, but going back as far as as the Tea Party movement.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's been inevitable that the GOP needs to kind of split into two parties almost. You know, you have the people who are more middle of the road centrists that are a little more pragmatic or loose with the social aspects, and they're just a little more hawkish than Democrats foreign policy wise. It's really the fiscal conservatism that drives their principle. Yeah. And then there's the more extreme ends of the party that really are the highly religious, very for lack of a better word, seemingly bigoted
and racist.
Aspects of the Republican Party, and I think they're having a sort of internal crisis of how do they maintain their strength without fracturing their image by essentially adopting people who are out there saying outrageous things.
Right, exactly, and what's crazy, there are now certain members of the Republican Party in the House and the Senate that have basically said, we wish that Cruz would stay in the Senate and stop trying to hop over and cause trouble, basically. It's just it's a big issue.
Somebody who is desperate for attention.
Well, I think he's just continuing to try to push his own agenda for a run in 2016.
Yeah, and he may have a shot. I ruled out George W. Bush in 2000, because there were, in my mind, more qualified candidates in the Republican field, but I was dead wrong there, and he won the primary. So I don't want to rule a guy like Ted Cruz out, because it's entirely possible that he may get his party's nomination.
Yeah, no, it could, but here's the other thing. I mean, let's play hypothetical here. Let's say that he does get the nomination, run for president from his party. What would stop somebody within the Republican Party from basically saying, I'm going to run as an independent?
Absolutely nothing, except I believe the party would come to that said independent and urge them, coerce them, beg, bribe, plea to not do that, because that's precisely what Ross Perot did that got Bill Clinton elected in 92.
Right. Yes, but would they really prefer to have to deal with Ted Cruz in office as well as his little underlings?
That's true, but do you really just sacrifice the entire presidential election because one guy that you know is going to shake things up might get elected?
It would probably be the noble thing to do.
This is politics. There's no room for nobility.
It's just funny because the guy that's basically causing them the most trouble, they might be forced to fall in line behind if that does happen.
Yeah, and Ted Cruz has a lot going for him. Obviously he's a Texas Republican, but he's also Hispanic, but he's very conservative. He makes a lot of noise, and I could see him being an energizing force in the party over the course of the next year and a half as we start to get into the real meat of the election cycle.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it plays out. Too bad John Huntsman doesn't have the charisma to go far.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, though. Think about some of the people who have been elected who have not had charisma. And maybe that's the question is, in this new media age, is charisma a prerequisite to hold office?
Well, I mean, to rankle up some of those fringe supporters, I'd probably say yeah.
I mean, George H.W. Bush didn't really have much charisma.
Abraham Lincoln didn't have any charisma.
Well, I don't know that. But yeah, I guess, if you look at Reagan, if you look at Clinton, if you look at even Bush 43 was a pretty charismatic guy, especially in person. In person, yeah. He could work a room.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, Barack Obama is the charisma president. I'd say that it's largely that and, largely that got him elected.
Well, on the Democratic side for 2016, very likely to have not very charismatic nominee in Hillary Clinton. So, I mean, she's a great speaker, great political strategist and all, but not a whole lot of charisma there. On the Republican side, yeah, it's the only guy they really have other than Cruz with a lot of charisma is Rick Perry.
Are you talking about screen charisma or like real true charisma? Because
just true charisma.
I mean, I think Hillary Clinton has got the charisma.
She's a great public speaker, but you see her on TV on screen, not so much.
Well, that's what I mean by screen charisma, because everybody that I know that has met Hillary Clinton or been in the room with Hillary Clinton or been at a rally, they describe a certain energy and a certain warmth and a personal connection there that they describe as unusual. So maybe it may be then that she has the personal charisma, but it doesn't necessarily translate through a screen, like TV or videos, things like that.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And I know, kind of hop off this because they're basically, the vote was canceled today to try to continue work on the border bill, so it's pretty much dead at this point. Thank you, Mr. Cruz, D-bag. I actually happened, and we can get to that in a minute. I'll kind of launch into this after we talk about something else because I know this is very interesting for you. The CIA. You want to kick that off for us?
Yeah. So so the House was actually the Senate was investigating the CIA's activities as it relates to data collection, and it turns out that the CIA got caught hacking into the Senate investigators' computers. They denied it, and then the proof was produced, and now they've essentially said, "Whoops, our bad," and apologized. And so now there's obviously a lot of calls for the CIA director to resign. But it's like something out of a movie. The CIA is off doing something perhaps it shouldn't do. It gets caught, and there's an investigation, and so now they want to see what the investigators know, so they hack into the investigators' computers. It's just, it really is comical. It's almost like the Keystone Cops. Like, how silly can you be?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just kind of nuts there. It's like, what? What are you talking about? We didn't do anything. We would never do this. We're the CIA. We have standards. And then, 48 to 70 hours later, it's like, oh, well, maybe there was a group within the CIA that did this, but we didn't know about it. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just...
This was some rogue bad actors inside the agency, and we're working to correct this problem.
Yeah, even though the investigation would basically start from the top down, and those people weren't acting just on whim. Like, oh, I wonder what these folks are up to. Let's see what they know. It might help us in our investigation of ourselves as well. No.
Yeah, so apparently he's apologized to Dianne Feinstein, which is probably a smart move because...
What, you mean after calling her a dirty lying whore?
I don't know if that's the exact quote, but...
I think it's pretty close.
But yeah, I mean, she is a feisty one, and she has a reputation for being rather difficult if you cross her.
Oh, absolutely, and then deservedly so. Good for her.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to conduct an investigation, and then you're going to dick around and play games. Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's pretty nuts. We'll see if a resignation actually happens, but like we were discussing, if it were to happen, the White House probably would have made a comment already today.
And the thing is, it's going into recess. There's so much happening in the news cycle that I feel that there's a lot of free passes going around in D.C. right now. Even the IRS scandal with the hard drives is, as much as the Republicans are trying to make that priority number one, there's just too damn much going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's too many other things because Congress has just not gotten anything done for 1.5 terms of Obama's presidency so far.
Well, I mean, even just the public attention. You've got a Malaysian airliner shot down over eastern Ukraine. You've got a war, and actually, I wouldn't even call it a war, but shelling in Gaza with.
I'm so over that. Both sides are committing horrendous war crimes and crimes against humanity, and it's just business as usual. It's like, oh, how many children are we going to bomb today? Ooh, let's go for 34. We hit 32 the other day. Let's top that number. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's just an amazing will to kill there.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird just watching humanity be trumped by bloodlust.
Yeah, absolutely, and basically the end goal for both sides is, genocide is essentially what's going on there. Same thing with ISIS. They, anybody who's different from them and they're Sunnis basically is that, oh, you're not Sunni, huh? It's just So.
Yeah. So speaking of the House, The one thing they did manage to pass before going into recess, because they only have 10 days left between now and the fiscal year, which is October 1st, is they did approve. They agreed on the scope of what the lawsuit would be to move forward against President Obama. So my question is what, if any, impact do you think this will have? Because what they're going for is they're trying to say that the president abused his executive powers, and particularly as it pertains to the Affordable Care Act.
Oh, well, what's crazy is that they've approved the lawsuit because he keeps essentially circumnavigating the House and Congress and all to take executive action. And then when the immigration reform bill died, certain members of the GOP are saying, well, the president does have certain authority to circumvent Congress to get something done on this issue, which he needs to do. It's like, so basically, like Wednesday, you're suing him and approving the lawsuit because he is using executive authority, which he has. And then, like 2 days later, well, we didn't get this done, but you know what? We urge the president to use his executive authority to do this because it needs to be done. It's like they want both sides, and like even certain members of the GOP are now saying, yeah, that message doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Well, I even think from a pragmatic point of view, it is an interesting lawsuit because you have seen this escalated use of presidents pushing the bounds of what they can do without the authority of Congress, acting very autonomously. With Bill Clinton in the 90s, really pushing the boundaries, and then after 9/11, when Bush 43 was in office, we saw a lot of actions made just arbitrarily, or not arbitrarily, but autonomously through the White House. And now this president as well Christ, we have JSOC, we have JSOC like murdering American citizens in foreign countries without any review or any due process whatsoever. So
yeah,
I think that the idea of having a lawsuit to pursue the question of where do the president's powers end is not necessarily counterproductive. I just think that it's being done for shitty political reasons.
Oh, absolutely, I agree with you there. It's just, and it's not going to achieve what they're hoping to. I mean, they're hoping that it damages the president and the White House and the administration to a point to where it's going to help them in 2016. It's going to help them in the midterms and all. But public opinion is starting to turn and sway a little bit, where like they're just more people are starting to pay attention than probably they have in quite some time, and realizing that attention could be better spent elsewhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have a Congress that is, absolutely handcuffed. There's nothing that's going to happen in this current climate, and I think it's probably going to continue. There may be some new energy after the midterms. We'll have a lame duck president, and there might be some things done, but it's not going to be until after the 2016 election. So you're looking at January, February, March of 2017 when we have a new president, and then if the balance of power is tipped in the House and or the Senate, you're going to start to see some traction then. But until then, I think it's going to be pretty dead.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this vote to sue the president was it was basically 225 to 201. 5 Republicans voted with the Democrats in opposing the lawsuit, and no Democrats voted for it. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, I think there's enough reasonable people in both parties that they wanted to make a statement, because they very well just as easily could have chosen to abstain from voting. And they didn't. They actively voted no. So I'm sure that the party is not particularly happy about that.
Yeah, but you know what? So be it, because a lot of the American public's not particularly happy with the Republican Party anyway. And it's just, what's crazy about this lawsuit is that what triggered it is because the president has twice delayed the law, the ACA's law's so-called employer mandate, trying to give more time for companies with 50 or more employees working at least 30 hours weekly to author health care coverage or pay fines. And so basically, it was supposed to take effect this year. So now companies with between 50 and 99 employees have until 2016 to comply. while bigger companies have until next year, which is what the GOP wanted to begin with. They didn't want this to take effect right away. They wanted to delay it. And so that's what the president did, and now the GOP is like, you can't do that without our approval, and we're suing you. So it's just kind of comical that that's what triggered it. The president delaying a particular mandate portion of the Affordable Health Care Act that the GOP wanted him to delay. He does it, and then they sue him. So, way to go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I'm personally very interested to see where that lawsuit goes. I just question whether or not this president will be in the White House
by the time it gets settled. Probably not.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he leaves January 1, 2017 or so. So.
Yeah.
And kind of hands the baton away, passes the baton off. So,
now, what do you make of the real quick on the back to the president? Do you think anything will come from an attempt, or do you think any attempt to impeach will be made?
I don't even know if the GOP knows what they're going to do, because you've got one half of the GOP stating no, impeachment's not on the table after they've already gone on record saying we won't rule impeachment out. There have been. Oh man, let me basically give you a list here. Basically, Speaker Boehner, John Boehner, said that this whole talk about impeachment is coming from the president's own staff and coming from Democrats on Capitol Hill. Why? Because they are trying to rally their people to give money and to show up in this year's election. That's what he told reporters on Tuesday. Okay. And then, of course, the Washington Post from 2 days ago, quote, "We have no plans to impeach the president. We have no future plans," end quote. But here's a list of people from his own party that have used the I word there. All right, Senator Jim Inhofe from Oklahoma, Senator Tom Colburn from Oklahoma, Lindsey Graham, South Carolina, Tim Scott, South Carolina, Jack Kingston, Georgia, Steve King, Iowa, Steve Stockman, Texas, Bill Flores, Texas, Paul Brown, Georgia, Ted Yoho, Florida, Michael Burgess, Texas, Carrie Bentivolio, Michigan, Louis Gohmert, Texas, Alan West, Florida, Michelle Bachmann, Minnesota, which is in the surprise, Randy Weber, Texas, former Governor Sarah Palin, former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich. I mean, these are all people. You've got over a dozen people that are contradicting what Speaker Boehner is saying.
Right. Now, are these people who are throwing the word impeachment around back home while they're campaigning or rallying or fundraising, or is this actually on the floor of the House or on MSNBC while talking about specific bills? Or?
Well, this is just all over the place. Some of it's back home trying to fundraise, and some of it's just out and about, ask questions about what they think of this and whatnot. Like Senator Lindsey Graham, quote, "It's going to be impossible for them to flow prisoners out of Gitmo now without a huge backlash. There will be people on our side calling for his impeachment if he did that." That was back in June of this year.
Well, that's a hypothetical impeachment, though.
Okay. Here we go. Jack Kingston, Georgia, quote, "Not a day goes by when people don't talk to us about impeachment. I don't know what rises to that level yet, but I know that there's a mounting frustration that a lot of people are getting to, and I think Congress is going to start looking at it very seriously. July 16th of this year." Okay. Steve King, he appeared on Breitbart News Saturday and talking about the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas, and King said that if Obama, quote, "completely destroys the rule of law with the stroke of a pen and Congress fails to act, there will be enough Republicans who didn't have a desire to do this, and that will be immediately activated to consider impeachment." That was a week ago.
Now, for impeachment, you need a 2/3 majority, correct?
Yep.
There's no way.
No, there's not, but they keep bringing it up. And now that Democrats are basically saying, yes, please keep talking about it, because you know what, it doesn't impact us whatsoever, and people are starting to see how ridiculous you are. That's when now Speaker Boehner's come out and other Republicans who have already been on record stating that, yes, they support impeachment, or impeachment is certainly an option, are now saying, well, no, it's the Democrats that are talking about being impeached, not us. We've never mentioned that at all.
Well, yeah, of course the Democrats are going to put that on every single campaign flyer or every request for donation email that they send out, because there was just enough chatter. They're like, well, let's do some political judo and use this to our advantage.
Right. But now, of course, the GOP is upset because they're doing it. You know, they're essentially using their own quotes and words against them, which are all on the record. And so now, like Tom Colburn recently mentioned something about how, you know, because he initially talked about impeachment last August, and now he recently mentioned about how impeachment, no, there's no reason to do that. We're settling with the lawsuit and yada yada yada, which now is kind of the talking line for the party at this point.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens after everybody comes back from from recess, but it's only going to be for a few days, and yeah, I don't see much happening. I mean, they're still going to have to pass a budget, and if they don't, we're looking at another government shutdown.
Yeah, October 1, I believe.
Yeah, now I think we're still funded through then. I don't know the particulars, but it's a campaign season,
But hey, you're going to have those pesky little yellow signs taped up that says, sorry, this park is closed, and then people will just basically go to the park anyway.
Yeah, so it's an interesting time to be screwing around, I would think that it would be in everybody's interest in the House, because every single member of the House needs to be reelected every single 2 years.
Yep. And another thing, and we can talk about this next week if you want, because I'd really like to spend some time on this, but get to something lighter here in just a second. Then you've got your douchebag of the week, which is just hilarious. But it would be nice if the Supreme Court justices did not actually have lifetime appointments. If they actually had their own term limits of, say, 10 years, 15 years, or whatever, and then there was no re-election, they were just done.
Well, see, my thought is, I mean, for the way it is now, yeah, I don't think that lifetime appointments are particularly helpful. It's always baffling.
I also don't believe they're healthy for the country. So.
Well, I mean, nothing about the political climate is particularly healthy for the country. But the Supreme Court, I mean, if these are the 9, most educated, scholarly, knowledgeable, God of law, as it were, why is it that we have constantly divided opinions on so many very, very key issues?
And why is it that over the last decade or so that it's those with the dissenting opinion that several years later those dissenting opinions are essentially put into law?
Yeah, and there's a lot of contradictions within the Supreme Court, and I think it's largely because presidents and administrations spend so much time finding ideologues that will uphold Roe versus Wade, or will overturn Citizens United, or will, whatever it is our agenda that we want to protect, we want to vet them and make sure that they're going to fit this criteria of what our party's agenda is, as opposed to just honest to God finding the most brilliant legal minds and scholars in the land and putting them in there and removing politics from the equation.
I don't know. Maybe we should just flip the script. When a Democratic president's in office, if there's an opening on in the Supreme Court, they have to nominate a Republican. And then when a Republican's in office, they have to nominate a Democrat. Boom, done. Because they will try to find the most moderate Republican or moderate Democrat they can.
Yeah, but that wouldn't work, because you can nominate people like, who are you nominating? You're nominating people who have not held elected office necessarily for a particular party. Yeah. So that would be a way to skirt that. But I think if Obama puts up a nominee right now, like if somebody were to retire today or announce their retirement and Obama puts somebody up for nomination, it could be, unless it's a fire-breathing Republican, there's no way this House is going to approve it.
Oh, no, absolutely not. But on a lighter note, before you get into your D-Bag of the Week and we sort of end things there, so Sarah Palin launched her own online TV channel, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, she bought herself a website. It was basically called sarahpalinchannel.com. Well, she did not get the sarahpalinchannel.com. That website domain is now in the hands of Stephen Colbert and his staff.
Oh, boy.
The website currently has a photo of Palin with the line, quote, "the only Sarah Palin channel on the internet with a definite article in the address, exclamation point," end quote. and then it also links to a segment from Colbert's show about Palin and Paul Revere, because, remember that story.
There's so many Sarah Palin stories, it's hard to keep track.
Yeah, I know. But, well, that's when she was basically linking herself to being kind of like Paul Revere. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I see the resemblance.
Yeah, exactly. So I just thought that was kind of funny that he did that, and basically, hey, and it's funny is because in this digital age, you would think especially politicians would be very, very careful about not letting their namesake domains fall into the wrong hands, or just in the hands of others, and not make sure they have an unending lease of life on them. But yeah, it's always conservative politicians that happen to just do this, where they forget, or they're like, oh, yeah, I'll get to that later. Yeah, and all of a sudden you've got sarahpalin.com, and it's some Sarah Palin head superimposed on some naked dude dude's body or whatever, and boom.
Well, the other thing too is I don't imagine she has a terribly large staff, because she's not working, right? Like,
She is out on public speaking tours and whatnot.
Okay, but I don't imagine that she has a real bona fide communication staff the way you would if you were in the governor's mansion or if you were in the House.
Well, she wasn't exactly a great communicator even when she was the governor of Alaska, so.
Well, I mean, I don't know. She had a rather small communication staff just because Alaska doesn't really need a big one.
True.
But, yeah, I would probably chalk that up to her delegating this to a nephew or a cousin and somebody just not really giving it much thought.
Right. Yeah, no, it's absolutely. So let's wrap things up today with your D-bag of the week.
So you did Douchebag of the Week last week, I believe, which was Southwest Airlines. So this week, my pick for Douchebag of the Week is Justin Bieber. Just
low-hanging fruit.
Very low-hanging fruit. I think the entire world can all be in agreement unless you were a 13 to 17-year-old girl. Yeah, he had his incident with Orlando Bloom. I guess they got
into a slap fight. Yeah. Well, Bieber told him, I fucked your wife, which was Orlando Bloom's ex-wife or soon-to-be ex-wife, whatever Miranda Kerr.
Yeah.
And so it's just Bieber's just such a douche, though. He spits on neighbors, the elderly. He'll spit on his fans. Then he cries, "Oh, people are trying to hurt me." Yeah, just. I would beat his fucking ass if it weren't for his 50,000 fucking bodyguards that he has and that surround him all day long. I'd be like, no joke. If I just saw him in a CVS somewhere buying himself some tampons, I would smack the shit out of him.
I don't know if I would randomly go up and smack somebody I don't know. But yeah, no, it's funny to me that he wants to put on a tough guy persona and then hide behind bodyguards the second things get heated. That is just...
Well, and he brings it on himself. He talks all this crap to people, and then he's like, What's wrong, bro? Why are you so mad, brosif?
Yeah. Who was it? Was it Keyshawn Johnson that confronted him in his house, and even a security guard really didn't want to mix it up, and so he just ran inside the house and refused to come out.
Basically, and it's like, and Keyshawn Johnson, cool dude, kind of like Charles Barkley, speaks his mind, whatever. But it's no joke. Like, you got a dude that's coming up to you, just basically, being real, or as Dave Chappelle would say, when keeping it real goes wrong. I mean, it's just crazy, and it's But I stand by my comment. If he broke down, if his tour bus broke down in front of my home, and he knocked on my door asking to use my phone or whatnot, I'd just smack him right in the mouth. I wouldn't even say anything. I'd just smack him right in the mouth, and then he'd look at me, and I'll just look at him back. You know what you did. That's all I would say to him. You know what you did.
All right, well, he's this week's Douchebag of the Week, and if there was any justice in the world, he would be the Douchebag of the Week every week, but then that wouldn't be entertaining, so...
Yeah, well, maybe we can give him like record selection numbers throughout the year. Oh, and the reigning champ, Justin Bieber, D-Bag of the Week. We can start keeping like a running tally of repeaters.
Oh,
I'm sure the Koch brothers will be on here sometime.
Yeah, but we're not quite in election season. Well, we are in election season, but we're not really in the thick of it yet. So there's time.
Well, their daddy led the whole anti-commie movement back in the day.
Really? Well, that only adds to the Junkies.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that next week. Some background on them, and one of their brothers, their brother that nobody really knows about, actually tried to blow the whistle on their nefarious plans to rule the world. So.
See, there's always one good one in the family, like me.
Always. No, we're not even brothers, so I don't even go there.
All right, well, I think that wraps things up this week.
Yes, it does.
This week, I'm Rick. I can be followed on Twitter at @RickRinker.
Yeah, and I'm Lance, and I can be followed on Twitter at LanceMRinker. So there you have it. Be sure to check us out on Konsume.com. That's Consume with the K, of course. You see the logo there. Don't forget it. And we'll be around.